Do we have to mute ourselves?
Yeah. All right. And welcome to the Power Lunch Live show. I am your host, Michael Whitehouse, the guy who knows a guy. So we have three fantastic guests joining us here today. The concept of the show, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome, is that I bring people together through the power of serendipity, which means that various guests from all kinds of backgrounds, all kinds of expertise, they apply to be on the show. And I say, that looks interesting. And then I put them together in the order of they say what Fridays are available, and I slot them in, and it has never failed me. 6 months of doing this, always amazing conversations, always amazing mixes of people. Sometimes people watch the show and be like, oh, it's a great theme today. I'm like, yeah, I didn't do that. That theme just happened by itself. So really excited about today's show, as I always am. And first, briefly, let me introduce myself, because I am the host, and that's the privilege I get, is introducing myself. I am the guy who knows a guy. I am a networking concierge. I make connections for people. So I'm a professional introducer. I do also have a new podcast called the Power 5 Podcast. I meet with a lot of people. I learn a lot of things, a little bit about a lot of things. So I go 5 minutes or less on topics ranging from business, networking, marketing, sales, life. You can send in your questions, and I will then answer them in 5 minutes or less. It's 5 minutes or less because if I go longer, then you realize I only know 5 minutes worth of stuff on each topic. But often, all you need is a 5-minute answer. So that's what the show is, Monday through Thursday, right in your email if you sign up at that link there. Now, let us meet our guests. Let me go into Meet the Guest format, and we'll start with Drocella. Tell us about yourself.
Hello, Mike. Nice to meet you all today. My name is Drocella Mugorewera. I'm located in Knoxville, Tennessee, USA. I am a mother, grandmother, a spouse, and a friend, and niece. And I am a speaker, coach, and trainer. Actually, I'm excited to say today that I'm becoming my own boss full-time. I was working as executive director for Bridge Refugee Services, which is a nonprofit helping refugees to integrate and to adjust in their community in the Eastern Tennessee. And today is my last day. So thank you for having me. And today we will talk about how you can be financially free, how you can build your confidence, how you can network like Mike connecting us, and live the lifestyle you like. I work mostly with women, African American, and skilled refugees and immigrants to help them to increase their income so they can comfortably and live their lifestyle they deserve.
Very good. And before I let you go from your bio, you also have a somewhat distinguished history on the other side of the ocean before you came over here, correct?
Yes, I'm originally from Rwanda, and I came as a refugee in 2009. Now, through Bridge Refugee Services, so it was a successful story to lead an organization that welcomed me. So I think I did make a big impact in the community, and even if I'm leaving, I will continue to be an advocate for refugees and immigrants. And I'm very grateful for all the people who worked with me, who welcomed me, who empowered me, because I came in this country without no penny, no money, no family member to rely on. And I was separated from my children for 2 years and my husband from 1 year. And I'm very grateful for what I achieved, the new network of friends and families I created. I am a happy woman, and I want to help other people to be happy as I am.
Fantastic. I'm sure we'll hear more about that soon. And don't forget to unmute. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, so my name is Obilor. I run Thrive with Omu. I'm a speaker, trainer, and a coach. I work with people to achieve success. Success means different things to different people. And I do that by, first of all, helping them identify what their true values are. And then we work based on your values and generally achieve success. My mantra is living your best life. I make sure I live my best life intentionally every day. I'm passionate about networking. So I'm an executive director in Business Network International, as well as the national trainer. So networking is a passion of mine because that's absolutely changed my life and my business. So I'm extremely passionate about talking about networking and seeing people network effectively and intentionally.
Very nice. And where are you joining us from?
I'm joining you from Lagos, Nigeria. So I say I live in Lagos, but I work on global stages.
Yes.
So I work everywhere and I live in Lagos.
That is the amazing thing about our modern times is you have to be like, which continent are you on? What time is it there? So that's one of the things that's so much fun about this, living in the future. And Mike.
Yeah, Michael, thanks for having me on. Just a little bit about myself. I'm located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Been an entrepreneur since the age of 14, and just along that journey have just seen different stages of the business life cycle. So have had businesses with great successes, have had businesses with failures and partnerships, been on my own, been with partners. And so along that journey have experienced different things within the business life cycle. And so what I started about 4 years ago now is the Small Business Tax Savings Podcast with really just a goal to help business owners understand the tax strategies that are available to them out there. I always say, like, so many business owners just feel like tax strategies are just for the millionaires, or tax strategies are just for the rich. And my goal and mission with our podcast is to eliminate that thought process and get people to think about when we talk about tax planning, that's for you, whether you're making $5,000 a year or $1 million a year. There's tax strategies out there that you can implement, and they're fully available to you. So that's really kind of our goal with the podcast.
Very nice. And actually, you're at the top of the order for introducing a topic. So I'm just going to leave you on the screen there. Tell us a little bit about small business tax tips and strategies and some things we might learn.
Yeah. So the first thing, I mean, when we're talking about this, oftentimes when people hear the word tax, they think of tax prep and filing. So meeting with their accountant in January, February, March, filing their tax returns, and then not seeing their accountant again until the next year. And when we talk about tax planning, that's not tax planning. In fact, when we get to tax season, there's really not much we can do to minimize our taxes at that point. Most tax planning, most tax strategies that we want to implement need to be done before year end. And so really that's just kind of this mindset focus that we see. One big mistake small business owners of all sizes make is just failing to plan for tax savings. And so throughout that process, it's just kind of getting this mindset change of tax savings are things that we should be doing throughout the year. We should be looking at how our business is performing and understanding, hey, are we going to have a good year? Are we hitting a lot of profit? If so, and what does that profit look like? What type of strategies can we take and implement before year's end so that when we go to file our taxes at year end, that's just taking information, sending it up to the government, send it to the state agencies. But we know that we've done the legwork throughout the year to make sure that that tax bill is as low as legally possible because we did that tax planning. So it's just kind of this mind shift of, instead of tax, when you think of taxes, tax prep and filing, it's important. It's required by law, but we should also be thinking about the strategies that we can implement beforehand. And, some of the easiest and easy kind of low-hanging fruit when we're talking to small business owners that they can start grabbing at is this idea of after-tax and pre-tax dollars. So think of it this way. As a business owner, I always say the number one tax strategy you can have is be a business owner, because now you can deduct spending that you're going to do anyways, but now you can have a business deduction for it. And so when we look at after-tax and pre-tax spending, we always say, think of it as your W-2. If you're an employee of someone, you have your gross wages, you get all these taxes taken out, and then whatever's left over, that's after-tax dollars. That's money that you got that's already been taxed. But as a business owner, we get our sales or our revenue from our business, and we get all these expenses that go into it, and then whatever's left over from that, we get taxed on. So we always kind of want to be thinking as business owners is, can I find a business purpose for the spending that I'm doing? If I can find a business purpose, now I can run it through the business and get a tax deduction for it instead of using after-tax dollars for that spending. So that's kind of the lowest hanging fruit, is just get creative. Think of ways that you can find a business purpose for that spending that you may already been doing, but now we can get a pre-tax deduction for it instead of after-tax deduction.
I love that concept. One of the most exciting things I discovered when I've had a business of some kind since 2014, and I had another one before that. But when I discovered you could deduct mileage, and that mileage deducts at a flat rate no matter what you're driving. So when I drive my Honda Civic, I still get a 58 cents a mile deduction, which is designed for when, a landscape company driving an F-350. So I'm like, Yeah. Oh yeah, sure. I'll come drive and pick that up. No problem. Because the government will gladly subsidize me driving over there to pick that up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. That's a great one. Hey, so since we have Mike here, does anyone have anything they want to ask him or share? Or, we do have the expert on the screen, so take advantage of him.
Yeah, I think it is worth it to hear all this. And really what brought me into the business side is that when they taught me like the 4 cash quadrant from Robert Kiyosaki, explaining the employees, small businesses and big businesses and investors. So that really, when one of my mentors taught that, he opened up my mind. I didn't understand the W-2, 990, 1090 forms, but now I understand better, and I'm excited to explore those opportunities you are talking about. And I'm teaching also other people. I cannot wait. I was telling somebody yesterday that my grandson, who will be 3, when he started to talk, I would just start to engage him as a future businessman. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because there is a lot. It's just taking the time to learn, and the thing is, a lot of people are like, well, tax savings for the rich. Well, it's not for the rich, but they also don't want to take the time to learn it. And I think it's just understanding that taxes in general are very complex. The tax law is complex, but when it comes down to the nitty gritty, like some of these strategies are really easy. Like, okay, going out to lunch with a friend, we're talking business. How do I get a business deduction for it? Like that's not complex. That's very easy to understand. Or taking a home office deduction, or hiring our kids in our business. Like, sure, there's some complexity to this type of stuff, but you take a little bit of time, learn about it, or engage a professional, whatever it might be. The tax savings far outweigh any kind of time and involvement there, and also can oftentimes reduce stress in that process too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, we had a question from the audience. Have you ever looked into Canada tax info towards global podcasting?
I have not. So I'm located in the U.S. So most of our training and what we're doing is all focused on the U.S. tax law. But I do know from country to country, that there is a lot of crossover on at least the base or the general way that people look at being taxed, and different types of income and stuff like that. Obviously, the laws are completely different, but there is this general idea of tax planning can correlate to whatever country you may be located in.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And among our clientele, Mike, do you have many people who are foreign born? Because sometimes when you move to another country, there is a lot of confusion, and sometimes people mislead you. So do you have a simplified way to teach like people whose English is second or fifth language?
Yeah, no, I mean, most of the training, like our podcast and the various content that we put out there, is all geared specifically towards business owners. And so, obviously foreign owned and people that are immigrating here can fall into a business owner, of course. But by that point, they usually have at least kind of some foundation of, how the basic tax law works, or from just being a newly U.S. resident or being on a visa here. So most of our teaching and training is for those that are have a business already set up or are looking to kind of organize that business.
And in your business also, sorry, Mike, what is the percentage or the rate when you compare men and women joining your business? How is the ratio?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's hard to tell because obviously we're in a podcast and it's just listeners, so we don't know, what is the demographic of everyone that's listening. But based on the conversations that I've had, the people that join our program and the various webinars and stuff, it is probably about 50-50 mix between male and female on that front.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think also for a lot of native-born Americans, business is still a second language. So. I find a lot of immigrants come over and start businesses, and I feel like some of that might be because they're starting fresh in every way, so they have no preconceived notions. Nobody raised them saying go to college, get a job. So they look at, okay, well, what are all the options and which option makes the most sense? Oh, entrepreneurship seems to make the most sense. Yeah, let's look into doing that. Whereas a lot of people grew up here may actually be disadvantaged because they've had their teachers telling them for 18 years that college is the path to success, and then go get a job. And and then they go get a job and they got their 3% raise every year and their 2 weeks of vacation that they don't get to use, and all those wonderful things you get, and not being able to, and myths like, oh, well, you don't have any withholding when you work 1099, so you're going to get hit with a big tax bill. I hear that, people are talking about Uber and whatnot. Be like, watch out, driving Uber, you're going to get punished on taxes. I'm like, punished? When I drove Uber, I think I averaged something like 75 cents a mile of income, and I could deduct 58 cents a mile as a deduction. So Uber drivers are practically not taxed because of the fact that their income is keyed directly to the miles they drive. But you got to record your miles, and there's Uber drivers who don't record their mileage.
Yeah, not to mention too, I mean, that's just the mileage deduction that you're factoring in, but there's all sorts of other business expenses that can be taken now that you're an Uber driver. Like, just because you're an Uber driver doesn't mean that you don't have maybe some, you might be supplying some candies in the car or doing things like that. Like, that's all still deductions that you can take over and above your mileage. So like, mileage is great, but that's what opens the door. And we always say, like, as a business owner, the best way to save taxes is become a business owner, because now that you can tie spending that you're going to do, whether you're a business owner or not, but you can tie it to the business and get a tax deduction for it that normally is not available to the typical W-2 employee out there.
So this has been great. So next up, I'm going to go to Omu, because she has been patiently listening to a discussion of American tax codes, which is possibly not entirely relevant to her business.
It actually is, but
maybe it is. So I feel even better.
No, but I don't have the question ready, so I'm going to have to take his details. Like I said, I work globally, and I know that they've sent me once in a while. They send me, I'm not sure if it's the W-2 or some form to fill. Sometimes it's a waiver, a tax waiver form, showing that I don't live in the US. But other times, when I speak in the US and I'm paid into my American account, I haven't had any issues, but I know that I would need to talk to someone like him just to be sure that I'm doing the right thing.
Well, there's your guys right there. So
yeah,
fantastic. Yeah, just like American culture, American tax law also apparently spreads across the world. But so I'm still going to give you the stage, because you are going to speak to us on. Was networking the topic you would like to speak on today? Networking. Talk to us about networking, a topic near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, I know. Networking concierge, yes. A lot of times, especially in the business of networking, like I said to people, I grew up thinking that networking was about attending events and exchanging business cards, and that's it. And I mean, with the advent of mobile phones, you have like 1,000 contacts on your phone, but you really truly haven't networked if those 1,000 numbers or contacts on your phone can't be converted to anything meaningful. So that brings me to the main issue about the main reason why we network, or the easiest way to network, and that's about building relationships. So in networking for business, we've met here, for instance. We've met through Michael. It's wonderful meeting everyone. There's a level of trust, yes, because we've met through Michael. But then you're not going to sign off a 1 million. You're not going to guarantee me for a $1 million deal simply because we've met here. The only way you can do that is if we go on to build a relationship. And how do we build this relationship? It doesn't happen over time. I have perfected that. Well, I have done very well in the area of networking because I'm an extreme introvert, and networking wasn't a skill that I possessed. So I practically had to learn it. And the first thing is, when you meet someone and you take the person's contact, to get back in touch with the person and say, oh, it was nice meeting you. And then another mistake a lot of people make is, when we say an event is a networking event, everyone comes with their business cards with an intention to sell their business. And if everyone else is selling, then no one is buying. But if we changed our mindset into coming to help people with their own businesses, then that way the businesses would go round. But what I want to hammer on here is about building relationships. In BNI, Ivan Meissner says something that it's about farming and not hunting. So when you hunt, you just go into the bush, you kill your prey, and you eat it. But when you farm, you plant a seed, you cultivate, you nurture, it yields fruits, you benefit from the fruits, and it continues to grow. You can actually get other plants from that one plant. And that's basically what a relationship is with today, is about. So you meet someone, and that's a seed. And then you go on to build this relationship. It could take days, it could take weeks, it could take months. There's no hard and fast rule as to how long it will take to build this relationship. And when you've built the relationship, every other thing would follow. There's no way that I've built a very good relationship with Michael and I know his business, that I don't have his business at the back of my mind. He's not going to have to tell me or look for a job for me. I know his business so well that I'm visibly looking out for prospects for him. Another question I get asked is, how do I know who to get along with, or you don't network with everybody. Everyone just doesn't get along. I personally don't get along with a lot of people. And that's where I came up with, I read a book by Ivan Meissner, and that helped me by identifying what my values are. When you identify what your values are, by the way, a lot of people, when you're asked what your values are, I find that we have this long list. And when we prune it down further, we find out that they are aspirational values and not current values. But there's really nothing wrong in having aspirational values. We have this fantastic list of values. I always have a fantastic list of values. But when I actually start to ask myself questions on each value, I find out that they're aspirations, not values I'm living currently. And then you begin to work towards, there's nothing wrong with having aspirations. You're just more conscious about it, and then you intentionally start to work towards it. Now, when you've identified your values and you have it in your head what your values are, you're able to identify those values in people that you come across. So that way you're aligning with people that align with the same values as you do. Will everyone have the same values as you do? No. But there's some values that are just a no for you. So like for me, a negative vibe is a no for me. I'm not even going to tolerate it. I'm not going to manage it. I'm not going to be nice about it. I can tell it from a distance and I would just block it off. For some others, it might not be a no. They might be able to think that, okay, I can handle it. I can make the person positive. So it really depends. There's no hard and fast rule. But if you're able to, what I call deal breakers, if you're able to identify what your deal breakers are, then you know this person is not coming anywhere close to me, or this business is not coming anywhere close to me, because businesses also have their values, and there's some businesses that don't align with my values and I don't want to do business with them. And that said, you're able to attract and work with the people that align with your values, and you find out that you have less toxic relationships. It's easy to understand the other person's business. It's not such, for me who is an introvert, it was such hard work to build relationships. But when I was able to deal with all this, it wasn't that much hard work because you're dealing with people who you kind of align with on different levels.
Mm-hmm. I want to unmute first. Then I want to touch on something you said about the introvert networking. And it's because often some people will see, I am outgoing. Some people observe that. Some people also observe I have ADD. That is also accurate, but not relevant to this. But so sometimes people will be like, oh, I can't network, I'm an introvert. And so I talk about extrovert networking superpowers versus introvert networking superpowers. So introverts are really good at everything you just talked about, which is the follow-up and the building relationships and remembering your spouse's name and that you're into fishing and that you like the Red Sox and you'll meet them a month later and they'll say, oh yeah, how'd your son's Little League game go? Or, how'd your daughter's soccer game go? Whereas I, as an extrovert with ADD, I don't remember that you have a daughter or a son or even what soccer is necessarily. So my approach to it is just pushing out value. Like, I can't remember what I've done for you. I'm just going to try to make sure that you come out of this meeting with more value than you went in and that you get more from me than you give me. And then I never have to worry about if I remembered your birthday because you want to see me again. But both strategies work really well. It's a matter of finding what works for you and approaching it from the right values that you're not there to take. It's not, as Ivan Meisner says, you approach it with I think this is Ivan Meisner, the ladle, not a spoon. Yeah, you're there to serve. Yep. And of course, yeah, giver's gain. That's the core idea of that. So, those are some really powerful concepts that I really like. So, any other thoughts from, I forgot to mention this in the beginning. Feel free to just jump in. You don't have to wait for me to call on you, or it's not school. It's more like a lunch, like a power lunch, you could say. So feel free to jump in if you have something to say, and try not to talk over people too much, but I don't think I have to worry about that with this group. We seem pretty polite. Mike, Drocella, any thoughts from you? Anybody? No.
I like I like to surround myself with positive people, because sometimes they pull you down and I do not have that energy. I have to pull up the energy from others, but sometimes we spend a lot of time with the negativity and judgments and things, and we waste time. The productive time sometimes is wasted on something else. So I do agree with Omo that you have to choose your environment. In writing my book, I think this is something I'm working on a book from exile to executive. And that is something I'm teaching people who are immigrating to other countries, that you have to choose who you surround yourself by if you want to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it gets down to something, Mike, do you have something?
No, I was just going to say, it was more just a question for both Omu and Michael. When you're in a place where you have an opportunity to network, do you have any recommendations on some of those starter points of having a conversation? Like, you found that person that you're like, yep, we connect, or appear to have values similar. What is that starting point to that conversation? How do you get to the point where you're introducing yourself to also make it seem natural?
So I have an answer, but I want to hear Omu's answer first.
Okay, usually if it's someone I knew I was going to meet, if I had an idea of who I'm meeting, I would usually do a research, thank God for Google, and kind of have a feel of who you are, what you do, find out as much as I can about you, so I would be able to come up with a conversation that I think would be in your area of interest. But if it's someone I just met who I have absolutely no clue, but we kind of click, I'll start by asking you what you do and show complete interest in you and your business, and talk less about me. So the only thing I'll probably say is, my name is Obilor. And after that, I'll just want to know how you're doing, what you do, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The key is not to sell yourself.
Right. Yeah. Well, and so my answer is similar, except for that research part, which I would like to do and like to say I do sometimes, but I will admit I often don't. So I get really good at the cold intro. But with every conversation, I approach it with the goal of solving a problem. Because if you go in that way, that informs, first off, because you're always like, okay, so I'm like, I do tax planning. Where are you going with it? And because most people are uncomfortable pushing themselves. You don't want to be like, so how much do I say about myself? What do I do? But if you go in the objective of solving one of their problems, that will inform a few different things. First off, the conversation. Your questions will be identifying a problem, which could start with, what do you do? Because from there, you're like, okay, well, people who do that often have these types of problems. I'll probe and see what challenges you have. And then I try to solve it in one of three ways: an introduction, advice or recommendation, or a product or service that I have. Introductions are always my go-to. Back when I had no business and no skills, I still could make introductions. And that's how I first became the guy who knows a guy. But if, so Mike, if you're probing for what are their challenges, and their challenges that their kid has serious behavior issues, and they haven't slept well for the last 14 nights because they're fighting with their child all night, and a good parenting coach or parenting podcast or book or whatever, you make a recommendation. Now they love you. You're not only listening to their problems, you're solving their problems. And they may then say, so what do you do? And how can I help you? But this also opens it up that some people, especially at certain times of year, if you're probing for what are your challenges, what's the big thing you're working on right now, they might be like, oh, Mike, I tell you, we just got our tax bill in, and whew, that was a surprise that we did not enjoy. Well, now you've got a place to go with that, and you can start, even before you say, I do tax planning, if you start just asking, because most people are really open about their problems and help. If you give them a platform for it, Americans love to complain. I don't know if other people in other countries do too, but I know the people I meet love to complain. And you give them a platform to complain, they just start going. They'll be like, yeah, I thought this was deducted, but it turns out it's not, and boom, boom. And then you can say, offer some useful advice or some useful resources, and they'd be like, who are you who's so wise in the ways of taxes? You can also use the magical 6 words if somebody identifies themselves as someone you can help, which is, would you like help with that? Because then that's basically getting permission to pivot into a sales conversation. They're sharing their problems. You're saying, would you like help with that? And they're like, well, yeah, I just told you my problems are. Obviously, I want help. And then you share, here's some solutions. You presumably would give them some advice. I assume you're that kind of guy. You've got a podcast that gives advice. And then you can segue in that conversation. But the great thing about doing that way is you never pitch someone who's not asking for it. Mm-hmm. In fact, you don't even tell them what you do for business until they ask, because if they're not asking, they're not listening. You might as well save your breath on your elevator pitch until they ask for it. And if you just listen to them talk about themselves for 5 minutes, and then you say, oh, I got to go grab a drink, they're like, who was that masked man? Who was that guy who listened to me talk about myself for 5 minutes? I feel such a reciprocal obligation because I didn't find out anything about him. I need to go track him down and start asking about his business, or Google him, or look him up on LinkedIn or something. So I find that to be really effective for getting those conversations going without any pressure on you.
Yeah, makes complete sense.
And if I may add a little bit, listening is very crucial. And one of my coaches taught me form. People like to talk about their families. So if you ask them about their families, they will be open to talk about it. And then occupation, you said what they do for a living. And it's what do they do for fun? Because many people like to do fun. And then last M stands for either motivation, what motivated them to do what they do, and or money. You can get to the conversation if they are excited about that, or if they have challenges in what they do, and then they would talk about the challenges, and then later on you will talk about potential solutions. But the most important thing, as predecessor said, is listening and try to engage, and things that they will be open to talk to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what all those have in common is basically 3 different ways to make them talk about themselves first.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you get them to talk first and share what they know, then you can drive the conversation in the right direction and share value. And because the worst thing is, and I'm sure you've all had this experience, you talk to the person and they make an assumption. And they think, Mike, you look like someone who would like to learn more about insurance. Well, let me tell you. Or the really awkward thing, which is if you run into someone, they don't know who you are, and they're, say, a financial advisor. and they start going on about tax benefits and pre-tax and post-tax money and all these 101 level financial and tax advice, and they're rambling on, and they're like, so what do you do? And you're like, I'm a tax planning expert, I have a podcast on the topic. And then they turn really red and say and they feign a heart attack and fall over to get out of the conversation. So if you let them talk first, you never put yourself in that position.
Mm-hmm.
So, and next up, Drocella is going to talk us about, is this the right topic for you? Monetize your expertise, resilience, and leading with empathy?
Yes.
Well, there we go. There's your topic. Take it away. Tell us about it.
Thank you. I am known as the faith-to-faith speaker. And I want to say that everyone is rich, everyone is worthy. And I have been told multiple times that I am overqualified. And finally I said, Drocella, what do you qualify for? And I had to go into myself and do self-examination and find out really what I qualified for. And this is why I said, I have these talents, I have these gifts. And one of my topic is that your self-worth is not measured by time. So everybody is rich, and we are created for abundance. And though we say it all the time, and now people are losing jobs, they are losing businesses, but they don't lose themselves. So as I told you, I invested in 40 years when I was back in Africa, and I lost it when I became a refugee. So one of my coaches will say, you can lose every possession and position, but you can never lose yourself because you are already rich. You have greatness and abundance in you. What I do as a coach and as a speaker, I just want to help people to awaken those gifts and talents and show people how they are worthy and how the world need what they have. And as I said, most of the time I address poverty and I address adjustment to a new place, because when you move with the talents, so when I moved from Africa and I'm living in America, the worthiness in me didn't change. I changed the location, but rich Drocella is the same from day one to the end of the time of she will live. This is what I want to say. Sometimes they say, oh, you're immigrants, you know what to do, you are resilient. Everybody has resilience in them. And our resilience leads to our destiny. It's not something you negotiate. Your resilience is not negotiable. And I just want to encourage people who are listening or who will replay this show that to not give up, because they do have gifts, they do have talents, and they have to sit down and see what they are capable and how and what they can give that to the whole world. And also I want to share people that with the virtual world, now my sister almost said she's a global citizen, like all of us. Now, you see, we are seated in our homes and we can talk and do businesses. So, and then you can invest a little to do businesses too. And one of my quotes, another quote is to say, if you don't invest, you don't harvest. Even though I came to America starting from zero, my first job was a minimum wage job of $6.55. I took it. I started to learn from people. I did research. I did self-investment in learning, trainings, attending seminars, workshop, networking, where I did get the resources. And sometimes I talk to my sisters and brothers, African-American community, about the access to resources. Then this is why I say when you don't invest, you don't harvest. If you really need to live your dream, You have to invest in in yourself. You have to study. You have to invest in trainings. You have to borrow money if you have to borrow money, because nobody will bring like a plate to you to be rich or to help with your lifestyle. You have to want that. You have to have a burning desire, as the Grow in Think and Grow Rich book authors say. So you have to have a burning desire to fulfill your dreams, and then you go after them. You will have people who will pull you down. Oh, Drocella, I cannot succeed. I can't tell you. When I tell people that I'm becoming a business owner full time, they say, "Did you get a government job?" I said, "No more. I don't need a job no more." And I will create jobs because I'm capable. So no matter where you are today, if you lost your business, you have the talents, you have the knowledge, just believe in yourself. This is why I talk about faith-to-faith speaker. Believe in yourself and network. We are talking about networking. In our culture, in African culture, there is a say that a bird that doesn't fly doesn't know where the good nectar is. So you have to fly, you have to network, you have to go to see other people who, and then associate yourself with winners. We were talking about who you surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with people having the same problems with you, you will not go nowhere. Also, do not invent the wheels. There are people who did research, who are experts, like the experts on the screen. You don't have to do the same mistakes, because I spend a lot of money going here and there, but you hire a coach or a mentor, and then these people who are experts will guide you on the path to go somewhere. But it's like asking the time from your watch, because all comes from you. You have the richness, but how do you fructify it? You have the talents and knowledge. How do you make them useful for you, for your community, and for global interests? So this is what I wanted to share. But everybody can be rich. Everybody can live the lifestyle they deserve. And we are all created for abundance.
I love everything you just said. That was some really good stuff. And first off, I love the fact that you have your first name as a website. I was looking at that. I'm like, wish I could get Michael.com. But so great job getting your first name as a website. That's awesome. But I love the concept of that, that everyone can have that abundance if they seize it and if they recognize it. And so many people I know who hold themselves, who had many advantages, who don't seize them because they don't see them. They just see, oh, I guess I can only get a minimum wage job. I guess I can only do this. I can only do that. And I don't have any money to put away. I don't have anything to invest. And they don't. And, when you don't invest, you don't harvest. I love that expression.
Thank you.
Mike, Omu, any thoughts?
That was really powerful. I mean, and coming from her, you should actually add mentor to one of the things that you do, because being a refugee and having to have gone through all that and found herself here, she's definitely learned a lot of lessons and worked herself to this stage, which is something anyone would learn from.
Yeah. And I think, seeing what so many people that we talk to that are listeners of our podcast and those items, they get along this journey of being a business owner, and it's tough. And so I think, what you're talking about is so powerful, about also something that you're continuing to revisit. Like, so many people think it's just set in, once and done. Get it set up, you're done. Start a business and everything's successful and everything's great. Set up a tax strategy and forget it, and you're going to save taxes forever. And I think it's this idea of that you're constantly building. And once that harvest comes, like, you might have to lay another seed down, because there might be that next journey or that next area in your life that you're expanding onto. So it was incredible.
Yeah, I think also the one benefit, or one reason why a lot of people from challenging backgrounds do end up thriving is that they don't have this pre-existing ideas of what they can and can't do. And well, I remember a friend of mine immigrated from, I think, Scotland, not Switzerland, Scotland, one of those S countries in Europe. They're all the same to me. Yeah, I kid. But he had this problem that his resume wouldn't work over here, which seemed really bizarre. But he had experience from Scotland and would show it to employers, and they'd be like, "Yeah, but that's Scottish experience. We're talking like retail, because obviously the way that people walk into stores and exchange money for goods is completely different in Scotland than the United States. I'm sure. I mean, I can't imagine any other way to do it. Yeah, because in Scotland they walk into the store and they pick up an item, they put it on a counter, and they hand them money, as opposed to the U.S. where they walk into the store and they pick up an item and put it on the counter and hand them money. Totally different. Totally different. And I actually I owned a store at the time, and I had to make up a fake job for him so he could have job experience. So I told because I wasn't going to lie for him. So I'm like, yeah, sure, you can work here. What did you do? I don't know. Make up a title, and you'll have that job. You're unpaid. So that he could then claim he worked for me for that much time, which he legitimately did. I just didn't pay him. He didn't do any work. But he held the title in my business for 3 months so he could then go out to other businesses and get jobs. So there's some really bizarre things there, but he worked around it. And as Drocella was saying, you still carry your experience with you and your knowledge, even if it's Scottish experience or Rwandan experience or Nigerian experience, it's still experience.
Yeah. And if I may also add on that, and this is what I want to tell people, with the global and virtual world, now there is no barrier. If you move to another country, being an engineer, even if you don't practice engineering practically, you can build a course and teach engineering to other people on other countries, even in your language. This is what I want to tell people, that if you move with another country with expertise, you can monetize it as soon as possible. You can take the entry-level position jobs, but we can teach you how to monetize your expertise. And this is what, from my experience, I had a degrees and then people will not trust my education. But now, after the investment in education and networking and learning from other people who are coaches, I can assure people who have expertise that it cannot be lost. We can teach you how you transfer your expertise, and you can teach it in your own language. Because now, and you can have evergreen. Now people are producing videos, people can watch and make money. So now the technology made it easier. And as I say, do not invent the wheel or do not delay. Just go find people who lived the experience, who have the skills, and who will help you to get where you are. And this is why I say self-investment, personal investment is one of the things nobody will order for you. But do not get discouraged. I think now we find out that there is a way to transfer your knowledge in any language and teach the whole world about what you know.
Yeah. And that's a huge thing. I know so many coaches and virtual business people who live in Mexico, or I knew one who lived on an island off the west coast of Africa, and all these different places in the world where, as long as you got good internet connection, you can run a business from there. As you were talking, I was thinking about it. Where my business is right now, I'm working to the point where my wife will be able to leave her job and join me full time, and that'll be a wonderful time. But even like today, if we were to decide, we want to live here and go to another country, there's plenty of countries in the world that I could live on my income, and we don't want to leave where we are, but if we did, I could live on my income in that country, do exactly what I do now. I've never met any of my clients in person, so I could do exactly what I do now, but from there, which means that there's people already in those places who maybe think they don't have opportunities because they're not in the U.S., they're not in Western Europe, they're not in Australia. But if you have access to the internet and the computer, you can do the same thing I'm doing from anywhere in the world.
And I want to tell people also who are terrified about certifications, your experience is certification. Nobody can talk about refugee experience than I can talk about it. So this is my expertise.
Yeah.
So there are courses that require certification, don't get me wrong, but do not be afraid to say, I can start my business starting from my experience and expertise, and then you can grow and learn about other skills. So this is something that the limiting beliefs that will, it's one of the limiting beliefs that will have a limitation to people to start their business, because they say, oh, can I do this? Can I do this? And it is never perfect. It will never perfect. They say the perfectionism is poverty. So you cannot wait that everything is there to start. You start the things and you build as you go. It's like you fly and you build a plane as you fly.
Yeah, I put on the wall behind me all of my formal certifications for being the guy who knows the guy. Yeah, I did take a coaching course, which I guess is a certification, but it's like an unaccredited certification that I got. But yeah, no, I just started introducing people and started networking, and then became a networker. And on our international show, Tommy from Malta is sending his wishes to from that part of the world. So welcome, Tommy. Thanks for giving us a shout out.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually funny. I met Tommy through networking, and then I ran into someone else from Malta through my international virtual travels, because I don't even leave Connecticut most of the time. And I asked them if they knew each other, and they said no. I'm like, well, so that's a connection I definitely need to make, because if you're both on the same island of 500,000 people, I feel like you're meant to meet each other. If I'm talking to you. I love doing that, connecting people on the other side of the world who are in the same country or city or. But
that's funny because I in my head I believe in a place like Malta, everyone must know everyone, because it's so small.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's still. I say the county I live in is 250,000 people, which is a fairly small county for by U.S. standards. But that's still, I don't know everyone in New London County. I know a lot of people. I know many of the more significant people. Not significant, but highly placed, highly titled people. But I certainly don't know everybody. And Malta's twice that size, so there's a lot of people. And I imagine there's probably a lot of people doing international business from their computer. So they don't meet their neighbors because they're meeting, be in Connecticut.
You probably don't even step out of the house.
Well, Tommy, I know steps out of the house, because when we last had a call, I think he was in a coffee shop overlooking the Mediterranean Sea.
Nice.
So I was enjoying vicariously visiting Malta during our call.
So, Mike, I wanted to make a comment on helping that guy who had a degree from another country. I always say to business owners who want good employees, and I hope I will be one big investor ahead of me, that you can have people with different nationalities, with different languages, and put them where they should be. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have people who have good customer service, communication. You see all the applying the position, good communication skills. This is the requirement, but many people do not speak the language, but they are handy. They have the knowledge in their mind. Put them in the back and they do the work, and the people who want to communicate, who are vocal, will be at front hand. So I think you did great thing, and this is about also equity. Sometimes you have to find people where they are, but help them to exercise those talents and gifts they have. So as employers, I think even if the ones who are employing the immigrants, I tell you, the refugees who do not have any English, they find jobs and they can work within 4 to 6 months after arrival in the new country. So if they can do that, people who have the language skills, they can just go to the roof.
Absolutely.
So that is an example, but thank you. That is really you practice leading with empathy. If you didn't have empathy for this person just will never develop or go up.
Yeah. Well, and to what you're saying about hiring the immigrants because they have certain skills and whatnot. One of my focus is going forward, I'm launching a new podcast called the Neurodiversity Superpowers podcast, which talks about that in terms of things like autism, ADHD, Tourette's, dyslexia, various other things where that are generally thought of as disabilities. And I came to realize that my ADHD is why I can make the kind of connections I do in networking. If I was focused like a neurotypical person, I probably would have just gotten a job and maybe then gotten another job. But I would have stayed in a place. Instead, I bounced from place to place to place to place. And now a whole bunch of different stuff. And that made my business as it is possible. But it's a matter of finding what someone's strength is. And as you said, just in general, figure out what someone's strength is and then make them do that thing. You want to build a successful business? Find a bunch of people with different strengths and then hire them to do that thing. And you will make a lot of money and have a lot of very happy employees. So, same thing, that if you have someone who has, ADHD and so they're really creative but all over the place, well, hire them to do something really creative and then hire an assistant for them to make sure they get to their meetings on time. Yeah. Or if you've got someone who's on the autism spectrum and they're very analytical and they're great at analyzing business proposals or doing engineering or whatever, have them do that thing. Maybe hire them an assistant who will go to meetings for them, or put them on a team with the gregarious engineer can go to the meetings, and the on the spectrum engineer can just sit there and work 12 hours a day and he'll be happy as a clam as long as he never has to go to a meeting. Put people where they're supposed to be. And that's how you're successful. Same thing, look past what country someone came from, or, a degree in Scotland is the same as a degree in Nigeria, is the same as a degree in the US, and sometimes better. So, there's a lot of value if you can look past those things. So I think that's a really, really great point. So speaking of time, were we speaking of time? My clock, speaking of time, we're almost at the top of the hour. So we're going to do a quick go around, about 30 to 60 seconds. Final thoughts. If you have final thoughts, share your website, you got a book to offer, whatever it is, now is the time to do it. And Drocella, you're up first.
I just want to thank you for inviting us to this show, and thank you for listening. And you who will replay, if you need a speaker, a coach, just visit Drocella.com, www.drocella.com, and you can book an appointment. And I want to tell refugees and immigrants and you women who feel undervalued, we are here to help you. And Mike, networking, this is how I met you. Now you made me meet to other people. And sometimes they say, if there is one thing you can teach refugees and immigrants, what would we be that one thing? I say networking and build relationship. Everything relies on relationships. Thank you for inviting, and I would be glad to connect and to stay connected with you. So Mike and Omo, I will reach out because I'm a networker and I'm a connector too. Thank you.
Very good. And Omo, you should unmute. Can I unmute you?
I absolutely enjoyed the last one. It was amazing meeting my fellow African and meeting. I'll start calling you the tax guy. But it's an amazing 1 hour of networking, and I would certainly do it over and over again. I actually have a hot water bottle on my back because I fell, but I knew I wasn't going to miss this for anything, and I'm glad I didn't. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And on a parting note, I just want to encourage people who are at the point where I was about 15 years ago, just thinking that networking is a lot of work. Unfortunately or fortunately, in the year 2022, you can't achieve anything without networking. And then building the relationships is key. And the dynamics about building relationships has totally changed because we're building those relationships virtually as against in person. It has its advantages and disadvantages. I'm speaking across the world, which I probably wouldn't have done before now. That's one of the advantages. one of the disadvantages is Michael is having to trust what he's seen of me over Zoom and probably read on LinkedIn or on social media and all that. But I would encourage us to build those relationships. And the first way to start virtually is by going on a social media page that aligns with your values as well, and post things that aligns with your values. So like I said, I Google people, and to a large extent, I form a certain opinion from what I have seen you post or comment about. So I would encourage us to start to build that relationship and build the relationship virtually. On a party note, I just want to teach everyone that there's something called the VCP process for our business, which is visibility, credibility, and then profitability. And the first stage of visibility is what we're doing here on our social media platforms, appearing here. And only then can you, when you consistently share your message and people, you begin to build a track record, then you get credible and you start to build credibility. And when you've built credibility, only then will you achieve profitability. And profitability is not only in terms of cash, but in terms of the people that you know, in terms of businesses, in terms of everything, but just profitability. Thank you so much. I had an awesome 1 hour.
Thank you. And Mike,
Yeah, it was a pleasure connecting with everyone here. And I'll just be quick with one takeaway. If you're a business owner, I just constantly want you to be thinking that regardless of the income that you're making, regardless of whether you're making $10,000 a year or $1 million a year, there's tax strategies available out there to you. And I want you to walk away. When you hear the word tax, I want you to think about tax planning and not tax prep and filing. Tax planning comes first. Tax prep and filing required by law, but that's going to come last, and ensure you're paying the least amount of taxes then. So you can find everything that we're doing at taxsavingspodcast.com. We do weekly episodes on tax tips, tax strategies, and accounting tips too. So thanks for having me, Michael.
All right. Thank you for coming on. And my final thought is, if you would like to hang out with me, I do an open virtual coffee every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. It's 10, right? Yeah, 10 a.m. Check my other screen. Every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. It came about because my schedule fills up. As you can imagine, people like to meet with me. So I realized I could either get picky and start turning people down for one-to-ones, which didn't sound like what I wanted to do, or I could create one spot and anyone could drop in. So anyone can go to guywhoknowsaguy.com/openvc. That gives you a link to a Zoom that's open every Friday morning at 10 a.m., assuming something doesn't come up. I was at the chiropractor this morning, but almost every Friday at 10 a.m. I'll be there. So you drop by and meet me. We get to network. And the cool thing is that the power of serendipity apparently surrounds me, and it's not just on this show, because I've made some really cool introductions of people I was meeting for the first time who came to network with me. And sometimes they need to meet each other more than they need to meet me. They meet me, they're like, oh yeah, you're cool. Oh my God, I got to meet you. You're the guy you got to know. So sometimes they just skip right ahead to the guy who I know instead of just meeting me. But certainly anyone who's watching who's like, I'd like to get to know Michael better, drop on in there. And that way you can be on the screen with me. And speaking of being on the screen with me, if you're watching this show and you are thinking that I'd like to be on that show, I think I'd be a pretty good guest for it. You see the crawl down there, crawling along. You can go to guywhoknowsaguy.com/powerlunch to be a guest on the show. And if you're on the screen, you can also do this. We use what I call the theme park model. So you stay in line, you get on the ride, you have a great time, you can get back in line again. So if you'd like to get back on the show, feel free to get back on there and apply again, because I'd love to have any of you on together, and you'll be reshuffled probably with different guests. Although maybe not. Who knows what'll happen? This show is ruled by my two producers, serendipity and random happenstance. So I never know what's going to happen, and I can't claim credit for it except that I put it together, but it seems to turn out pretty well. So thank you very much for being on the show. Stick around for 1 second. If you're on the screen, don't log off right away. And for all of you watching at home, thanks for watching. Join us again next week. Same time, same channel.
Thank you, Mike.